I'm excited to be able to welcome on a very special guest who I talked about right before we went on this break. He is currently 21-1. He's one of the top ranked contenders in the 154 weight class. That's Jesus Ramos Jr. Jesus, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to get right into this because first and foremost, we talked about you and you had a massive win just a few months ago now. And over the past couple of weeks, though, we've seen this 154 weight class make a lot of headlines. We know the Bud Crawford fight happened. And then last week, we had the Virgil Ortiz fight go down. And so this 154 weight class is starting to look really interesting right now. Just overall, what's your thoughts so far in the past couple of weekends?
It's been really exciting, man. I know there's a lot of talent in 154.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the hardest division in boxing right now, and like I said, a lot of talent, a lot of fights to be made, and it's just exciting. For me to be at the 154-pound division because I know there's big fights to be made, and exciting as well, and that's what we're here for.
That's what I wanted to ask you because that mindset of a fighter now, you're waiting kind of obviously I'll ask you in a couple of minutes though about who could be next, something along those lines. But when you see a weight class, really just load up because I think just about a month ago, there's a lot of question marks, who's actually going to merge? How's Bud going to perform at this weight class? And now it's like you said, I mean, it's easily a very well statement to say that 154 is the toughest weight class in boxing right now. How exciting does that make you now knowing that, there are so many options you could fight that could be big time fights to make right now?
It's exciting, man. Because I feel like I'm just right there. I just need one fight, and it's gonna be my breakthrough moment. I just feel like I said, there's a lot of fights to be made, a lot of exciting fights, and with that, with having that type of competition, it just brings the best out of me, and I'm sure it brings the best out of everyone. All these top athletes, all these top fighters. So I mean, I think it's a win-win, for the fans as well. Everyone gets a great fight, and I mean, we get a lot of exposure as well as fighters, as boxers.
And so we're going to go through your career in a little bit here, but obviously you look at this group we just looked at, lots of guys, like you said, lots of great fights you could possibly make. And we know there's nothing on the table, at least publicly yet, in terms of schedules for yourself. Is there anybody that you're looking at discussions? And if so, who are some guys that we could possibly see you return to the ring and fight in the upcoming months or this year, or maybe even early next year?
Man, unfortunately, there's nothing set yet. There's nothing official. There's nothing. We've been working on a couple stuff, but like I said, nothing official. Nothing that I can even throw a name out there. It's just
Sure.
nothing. But I mean, there's guys like Tim Zoo, Lubin. The rematch with Lubin would be awesome. Virgil Ortiz, even Boacek. It was a good close fight.
Sure.
He's still in the mix. So those are all great names that are possible opponents and fights that I believe that they aren't hard to be made. Those are even Madrimov, Madrimov, Crawford, all those guys, Fundora. I know Fundora's waiting for Spence, but
Mhm.
everyone else is either gonna be available or be available in, like you said, early 2025. So those are fights that can easily be made, and that's just exciting, man.
So what's a possible timeline for yourself? Like, is fighting one more time at least this year something that you want to do? That's something you're looking to pursue, or is it something that you're just kind of letting the cards kind of fall? And if it's something that has to happen early 2025, that's more okay in what you're targeting right now.
Now, man, I'm hoping I can fight at least one more time this year.
Mm,
It's difficult. It's difficult.
yeah.
I think at this stage, it just gets harder to make fights. But I want another fight. I'm staying ready. I'm staying in the gym.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't control that aspect of when I fight. Whose card I'm on. All those things. Those are things that I can't control. But I can control how ready I'm gonna be for when I get that call, and that's all I'm doing. Just doing my part right now.
All right. So you did mention one name, and I went back and watched the fight too, and that's the one time you did happen to take the loss. And I know that's obviously a very debated loss there, and I know you and on Twitter said you're not going to make a lot of excuses, and you handled it really well. But I know every fighter that if you get a loss to somebody, you want to be able to revenge that in a sense. How big would that be for you? Is that something that you would like to do to be able to go back and get that rematch? Like, is that a priority to be able to kind of redeem that one loss you did have?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like I mean, it's something that I wanted. right, kind of right when it happened. Is that I wanted it really,
Mhm.
really bad. But Lubin, he didn't want to give me the rematch back in May and stuff like that. So we weren't gonna sit around waiting for him. We just made it happen. We fought Johan Gonzalez, and I mean, I'm still looking to fight, whoever. But if the opportunity presented itself, that's something that, yeah, most definitely it would mean a lot to me to be able to
Mhm.
get it back and just kind of clean that slate.
So I would like to ask you about the mindset in those type of situations because that's a loss that a lot of people, if you go back and look at the Twitter and the critics, like that's a loss a lot of people say you probably shouldn't have even had that loss to begin with. And a lot of guys might take the approach to say make a lot of excuses about losing. They might go and just say it was rigged, whatever the case may be. But you took it a lot more gracious and humble, at least from the outward perspective. How do you deal with that personally though, when it's a loss to begin with, but especially one that you feel you probably could have won if not you did win that fight? How do you deal with that as a fighter?
Look, man, that fight. I mean, I had never lost in my professional career. Obviously, that was my
Yeah.
first loss, so I never knew how to handle a loss. I just, you obviously as a fighter, you don't prepare for those type of things. I mean, you're a competitor. You
Hmm.
never prepare for to lose. And when it happened, yeah, I didn't want to make any excuses. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to blame nobody else. I wasn't raised that way. My
Mm.
parents, they never raised me like that. I've never been in an environment where making an excuse is okay. So I it was hard not to complain.
Mm.
I could have taken that route and just complain about the judging, about everything. But like you said, I took a different route and I took ownership, man. It was my fault.
Mm.
If it was my fault for leaving it up to the judges. It was my fault for not doing my job the whole way. So I just took ownership of the situation. I came back. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie and say it was easy. It was hard. It was hard
Yeah.
times. I had to kind of just reevaluate myself. Find myself. But once I did, man, I changed a lot of things. I changed my lifestyle, you know, um, my mindset. A lot
Mm.
of things changed since that fight, and I took it as a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise because, like I said, I changed a lot of things in me, a lot of things in my life, and I'm not the same fighter I was last year. So I'm grateful for that.
So, what would you say would be the biggest changes? What was either the biggest or even some of the biggest thing that you'd say you altered in your life to help you become who you are now today?
Man, there's a lot of big changes. The circle around me, it just got tighter. I
Mm.
just don't let people in. I read a lot now. I like to read. I value my peace a lot more now. Just a
Hmm.
lot of different stuff. And I I mean, I think I showed it in my last fight. It was just a more complete performance,
Yeah.
and just it was just because of my training camp. I felt a lot more at peace. I I enjoyed it again. And
Mm.
as an amateur, that was easy. It was easy to train every day. It was easy to go enjoy sparring. Then you start getting to this level of professionals, and things start to change, man. You start putting pressure on yourself that we don't need. You start just not focused as much as you should be, focusing on little things that, like I said, don't matter. And I just kind of went back to that. Kind of went back to how it used to be, how I used to just train and enjoy it, and do the things that I used to love doing. And like I said, man, there's just a lot of changes that I've made.
No, that's a huge thing because I think, especially for athletes, but even more so on a sport where it's all on yourself. It's not like a team situation that you can rely on teammates or whatever. That it can become tough. That when you take that pro jump now, it's not just as a kid. You're fighting 3 rounds or whatnot, amateur. Like this is now pressure. You get that loss in the eyes of so many people. They judge you on your last fights. The way, for some reason, that's the way it's become such a big stigma, especially in America, I'd say. And that's not always easy because now it becomes a financial game. You're fighting for your life. You're fighting to be able to make financial gains. You're fighting with the pressure of everything does matter. You have a much larger spotlight on yourself. How have you learned to adapt to that now? And like you said, be able to find that peace even in a world and industry where it's so chaotic at times and so easy to get distracted like that.
To be honest,
Yeah.
reading, controlling my mindset, man. Just making sure my mind is strong because, like you said, there is a lot of pressure. But it's just having a strong mindset and knowing that. I mean, yeah, I do it, but I love it, man. But it's a sport, you know. It's a sport, and at the end of the day, now I have nothing to lose. You know, I lost my undefeated record. Now I really have nothing to lose. So I'm going for it. You know, any fights that's there to be made, I'm going for it because there's nothing to protect. You know, I don't know how to protect my undefeated record, and it's just a different mindset, and it's just that pressure is out the way, you know,
Mm.
and any other pressures, I'm learning how to deal with, and I think it's a lot better now. I deal with stuff a lot better, and yeah, man, like I said, it was just a blessing in disguise.
That's an interesting perspective because I think, I don't want to make it sound like, losing is ever a good thing or what something you want to pursue to trying to lose. But especially like you said in this boxing industry where the O is such a big concept, do you think
Yeah.
that almost like you said, it can almost look like a blessing in disguise, but now it's like, you know what? Well, I've lost now. What is there to lose? Now it almost kind of frees you up in a certain sense where now you feel much more comfortable being able to take whatever fights on the table, the best fights, and truly just show how good you are as a fighter now instead of just protecting that O.
Yeah, man, definitely. There's obviously a certain amount of pressure in that, you know, being undefeated, protecting that. But now it doesn't matter, you know, like you said, I lost that undefeated record, so now I can like take those big jumps and all these big fights with no worries, you know, with no worries about my undefeated record, and even so, man, like back it was like I was too worried about like kind of like looking good and it was just a different pressure that I was putting on myself. But it's boxing, man. It's a fight. You know, I'm going in there to fight. So
Hmm.
I have to win by all means necessary, and that's something that I've been learning to do. No matter what I have to do, it doesn't have to be pretty. And like I said, there's been a lot of changes, and I it's just just changing the mindset, growing a lot, maturing a lot, and
Hmm.
little by little, man, I feel like I'm gonna be a complete fighter.
So I do want to go through your childhood because overall now, and I know some people already look at your resume and how many wins you've already fought and the big time fights you've been a part of. And when they find your age, they're probably a lot pretty shocked because you're still under 25. Like you're still one of the up and coming young guys. And you're now at a stage where, we're talking about you being one of the top contenders and whatnot. And that's usually not something that people your age is a part of yet. And so I kind of want people to get to know your story a little bit because you obviously haven't been in this game for that many years comparative to some other guys that you're going to be competing
Yeah.
against. And so I want people to know your story though a little bit in your childhood. So I want to go back and I did a little bit of research and I brought this out of your PVC bio page. And there was this quote you talked about before that when you were at the age of 4 years old, you got bored boxing a little bit, but then eventually came back and you started training. And your dad gave you an entire year to determine whether or not you really wanted it. And at about 8 or 9 years old is when you officially started boxing then. So can you take us through that? Because I don't think there's a lot of people that at 4 years old, they're already pursuing the sport they're going to, or the job they're going to be pursuing for the remainder of their life. How did boxing all come into plans for yourself then?
It's funny, man, because my father and my uncle, they used to train in our garage,
Hmm.
and so it was just a matter of me walking out there and training, you know, and they would obviously like go run and do all these type of things, and I would be there with them, you know, running. If they were sprinting, I'd sprint. I was sparring, all of that, and I was always sparring older kids, and I was, you know, I was doing good, you know, as a little kid, and it got to a point where I mean, I was going to my uncle's fights, the amateur fights, and they're fighting and competing and getting ready for a moment, and I want to fight and I want to compete, and I can't because I'm four, you know, I have to be 8 years old. So I'm like, nah, you know what? I got bored of it. You know, I got tired of it. I got tired of training. And it wasn't even like I was obviously not training hard. You know, it wasn't like I was killing myself training, but I was, you know, there mostly every day and
Hmm.
making it kind of a priority. My dad was pushing me. And I was like, it's not worth it. I'm not fighting. So I told him, my dad, you know what? I'm just gonna stop training. I can't fight. And yeah, I stopped training a couple years. And I'd obviously go back and forth. Sometimes I'd go to the gym. Sometimes I wouldn't. By this time, my dad he got a gym. He opened up a spot, and so that was exciting. So I would go, but I wasn't consistent with it. It was just go some days and some days not and stuff like that. And then when I told him, you know what, Dad, I want to do this. Like I
Hmm.
kept watching fights. I mean, I was always a fan, man, and I remember I would always lock myself in the room, and I would put on music, like my walkout music, and I'd
Hmm.
walk in the ring, and I'd visualize everything, man. I'd visualize a big fight, and even when the big fights were on, we'd always buy the pay-per-views. I'd be shadow boxing, like just the love for the sport was always there, and
Mm.
but I was just a little kid, and my dad, he never wanted to force anything on me. He didn't like that. So when I told him, I want to do this, he was like, well, he thought I was playing, because like I said, it was on and off. I was inconsistent with it, and he was like, well, you know what? If you want to do it, you have to show me, that you really
Mm.
want to do it, and I need a year for me to start letting you compete. And because I wanted to, I wanted to start training and get my license, my book to fight amateur. I wanted everything right off the rip. I didn't,
Hmm.
the first day I was there, I wanted him to sign me up, and he said, "No, that's not how things work. Like you got to show me, you got to prove to me that you really want it, and I need you here every day, working hard." And I said, "Okay." And yeah, man, that whole year, I remember I worked hard, and I gave him that year. He signed me up for USA Boxing.
So I want to make sure we clarify this a little bit because this is a discussion you probably hear with a lot of people, maybe when they're 14, 15, 16 or whatnot. I mean, we look around, and at least I'm in Arizona too. So, at least I can see a lot of people locally that are 4 years old or under 10. And to say the least, they're probably not working out, let alone even have any idea what they're doing anymore. And so I think it also has to have a little bit of testament to your parents, your dad, and the kind of the role model he is for you. So give us a little bit of insight into that because just him not, I mean, like you said, well, it was more he allowed you to decide what you want to do, but he still was there to push you and kind of gave you the mindset of trying to be great from a young age to obviously be working at that much at only 4 years old. So just kind of walk us through his impact on your life then.
You know what, man? He's been a great role model for me. He's always, been a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was times, man, where even in amateur events where I had a fight, he was working, and I'd go weigh in. My uncles would take me to go weigh in, or I'd catch a ride with someone from the gym weigh in, and he would show up, after work to go work my corner or whatever. But he's been a great role model, and he's always like, it's crazy because yeah, I was so young, and I'm still so young,
Mm-hmm.
but it was, I mean, I was my dad's first born, first child, and he was very excited, with his first kid, and he would he would buy me like motorcycles and all, and I'm only 2 3 years old. I think I was one, like I had just turned one when he
Mm-hmm.
got me like a little motorcycle, a little like a little one that it's obviously battery, but like for big kids, where they
Yeah.
press the button and it just goes. I guess, well, I didn't even know how to like go on it. I didn't know how to press it. I didn't know how to do nothing. And he tied a rubber band to my thumb around the
Mm-hmm.
button. So I was pressing it, and I was just going and driving by myself. I fell asleep, man, riding that, and they had to chase me down because I had my thumb pressing, and I was going. They had to chase me down. So little things like that, I was always like just more mature for my age, just doing things that you know I feel like other kids, maybe this generation wouldn't do. He was,
Mm-hmm.
at 6, he bought me my quad, my first quad, and it was big. And I was always outside playing, man, and I was with them and kind of just learning, and always hanging out with the bigger kids. My uncle Abel, he was also into riding, motorcycles as well. He was 15, 16, and we would ride it, and I was flipping, flipping myself in the motorcycle. I don't know how to ride it. I'm just a kid. So I'm going through all these adventures and just maturing, man, and learning different things. So I think that played a big impact because I'm more mature for my age, and it was thanks to my dad. The way I was brought up, and it was just I don't know. It was it wasn't like he was hard on me, but it was like I always felt like I needed to kind of make sure that me and him were good. I don't know how to explain to you, but
Sure.
I always had that like I gotta make my dad proud. I gotta make sure my dad is proud of me, and so I was always trying to be be better,
Mm.
and obviously as a little kid you have days where and even now you have days where you don't just don't feel like training, and but I mean as a little kid you don't get to have that. You're just a little kid. You're supposed to be ready every day. And
Mhm.
when I had those days, it was like, man, I gotta be better. I gotta push myself. And yeah, man, I mean, I was 10, 11, getting up at 5 a.m. before in sixth grade, fifth grade, before going into school. I would go run. Like I said, 5 a.m. getting up to go run, and it was just different. I had a different childhood, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in this world. It's made me what I am and who I am, and yeah, man, all those core principles, all those values that I have now, are
Mhm.
are thanks to that childhood.
So you said that when you officially decide, boxing what you want to do, and you can start doing the amateur ranks. At that point in time, did you know this is what you were going to do for your entire career? Like, this is what you want to pursue. You want to be great at boxing at that point in time, or did that more develop over and through your amateur career?
I always wanted this. I
Hmm.
always and obviously as a little kid you don't, and more so here in Casa Grande you don't like. There's no like there wasn't any role models
Mm.
like I just had my uncle Abel. It wasn't like I want to be like him who made it out of Casa Grande. I want to be like him who made it out of this town. There wasn't anything like that. And so it was really hard to kind of have that vision.
Hmm.
But I would always think like, there's got to be a way. I have to be a world champion, and it was kind of like I want to be a world champion, but I never knew the steps to get there.
Sure.
Like I just in my mind I want to be a world champion, and that's all I
Hmm.
would tell myself. I want to be a world champion, and I want to keep trying. And I was never talented. I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm talented because in the amateur ranks, I wasn't really good coming up. I had to learn a lot. I had to take some losses as an amateur. I had to, like I said, learn a lot. So I don't consider myself talented, but I always worked hard. You
Mm.
know, I I would lose Saturday and I was back in the gym on Monday, um, and working my butt off, man, and getting yelled at by my dad or he's telling me you did this wrong. Getting constructive criticism, but I was there working.
Mm.
And there was times where I was frustrated, man. I would lose 3, 4 times back to back, and it was like, what's going on, man? It might not that good, but I was there,
Hmm.
man, every day. And I would remember, I got almost like 12, 13 when I discovered motivational speakers, like Eric Thomas and all of
Yeah.
them, Les Brown, and I would love watching those videos, man. And I would run listening to those videos, and I would always keep pushing, man. And I would always think to myself, like, I know I'm not like talented. There was kids in our gym that I felt like had more talent than me, but I was always working hard and just doing that extra mile, going that extra mile, doing that extra round, and just visualizing everything. Always, man. I would always go to bed, just kind of thinking like I'm gonna be a world champion, and like I said, always just thinking about that moment of becoming a world champion. And as
Hmm.
I grew older, I was able to fit in the moments in between that. Like there was
Hmm.
always being a world champion, but there was never moments in between that. Like there was never like the journey. I never knew
Sure.
the journey. I never knew nothing. But as I got older, I started putting bits and pieces. Like okay, I got to do this. This has to happen. I have to go through this, and I have to go through that. And now that I'm here, I'm constantly reminding myself like this is what you dreamed of when you were eight,
Hmm.
9 years old, man. This is what you were dreaming of when you were running, listening to Eric Thomas. You know, this is what you've been knowing and been wanting, and now you're here. You know.
I wanted to ask you this. I actually wrote down another quote you said from another interview in 2020 that kind of goes along with what you're talking about. You weren't always per se the most talented, but it was more your hard work aspect. And you said something. This quote was, "If people tell you that you're not, that you're good, don't believe them." Walk us through that a little bit because that's also an aspect that a lot of people typically would say. I want to be praised. I want to be this, that, and the third. And so you obviously take a different approach to that. You say, okay, cool, thank you, move on. Walk us through that mindset though a little bit.
Yeah, man. I feel like at that time I was the guy who told me I was 17 and I was 16
Hmm.
right before I turned pro, and I was doing really good in with sparring professional fighters. I was looking really really good, really sharp. I was really like just focused because I wanted to turn pro. You know, and I knew I just had to demonstrate. I was kind of done with the amateurs. I wanted more. I wanted something different. I felt like my style was more suited for the professional game.
Hmm.
So, man, I was working hard, and I remember like we had a lot of fighters from Phoenix, the Phoenix area, coming to our gym, and I was looking really good, like I said, and that guy he told me like, man, and everybody would tell me like, man, you're good, you're gonna be a world champion, and it's crazy, you're so young and you're gonna be a world champion and this and that, and he came up to me and he told me, he was like, you know what, you are gonna be good and you are gonna be a world champion, but when people tell you, don't believe them. And it stuck with me. And at the time I was like, I always take every advice I can get, and I choose if it's good or bad, but I always take every advice, and like I kept repeating it in my head, and I was like, what? Why would he say that? And what would he mean? Why? What did he mean with that?
Hmm.
And yeah, man, it just the more that I turned pro, I kept growing and kept going, and people, you're gonna be a world champion. You're good. You're gonna be real good. And as a human being, you start getting comfortable. You start,
Yep.
I'm good, I got it like that. But you don't, like I told you, I'm not talented. I don't have it like that. I'm here because of my hard work. So I have to continue to work hard and I have to continue to get up every day because I'm not talented, and I just I don't get comfortable now. I can't be comfortable. I have to continue to work hard.
All right, so I have to also ask you that when you do take that pro jump, then you are in a position where I know a lot of guys typically will go and fight a lot early on in their careers, but I haven't seen too many guys fight as much as you did because just to put the stats out there to be specific, you fought 10 fights in under 12 months to start you off your career. You had two fights within that time line that was within 21 days of each other. And all these fights in comparison here also only went for a total of 18 rounds. So in essential, I mean, you didn't fight too many rounds overall because you obviously got rid of guys pretty quickly there, but you got to walk us through that a little bit because you didn't just start and become pro. You jumped right in there and went full steam ahead with 10 fights out right at the gate. You got to walk us through like what was that first chaotic year like for yourself?
Man, that was one of the greatest years of my life, man. I love those moments because there was nothing, man. I mean, like we had no promoter. We had a manager who was helping us, and I'm always grateful for that. But there was nothing like promising.
Mhm.
Like nobody promised me that I was gonna be signing PBC, top rank gold. There was nobody, like yeah, you know what? If you look good, you got someone watching you from PBC, from top rank. Nothing like that. There was no hopes of that. It was just a dream. There was just that. That was it. Just the dream of fighting. And I wasn't fighting on a big stage, man. It was in Mexico, down in Tijuana, Agua Prieta. It wasn't the biggest stage, but it was my dream, man. I remember from my pro fight when they told me I was gonna be professional debut. I was still in high school. I was getting up. before school running. I would meal prep. I would take my meals to school, eat healthy. It was I was just excited about it. Like I can't explain to you. It was just some just like an excitement. Like this is huge. Like,
Hmm.
and it wasn't. It was just at a gym down in Agapeta. It was just a local club show. But for me, it was a big moment, and I prepared myself that way. And I went and fought, and I was in the gym Monday. And then I got another fight, and same thing. I prepared myself and on the gym Monday, and it kept showing because I kept knocking these guys out. And yeah, they were lower level opposition, but at that time I was taking the hardest fights that they would offer me. Like they would offer me three guys, and I was taking the hardest one every time out. And because I wanted that, I wanted that challenge, and I fought some tough fighters down there, man. And I'm just grateful for that experience because, like I said, there was nothing was guaranteed, man. Like, and now that I think about it, now that I have all this experience, I think about it like I never once sat down and thought to myself like, what's the plan here? Am I gonna do this for the next 5 years, for the next 2 years? Am I gonna get signed? Like, what's gonna happen? I never thought that far. I was just living my dream, man. I was just grateful to be in that ring as a professional, yeah, in front of a little crowd, but I didn't have a headgear on, man, and I was fighting in 8-ounce gloves, and I was weighing in the day before, and I had 24 hours to hydrate, and little things that growing up, I would just think like, dang, one day I'm gonna do that, and I was doing
Hmm.
all of these things, and like I said, I was just living the dream, man. I wasn't thinking more, ahead. It was just that in that moment.
When you look back at that then and you kind of realize, it wasn't this big old production show. You've been on some big cards now in your career, but starting off in you could say a more humble aspect in terms of just not always having this massive, large scale production, fighting the Barclays Center, fighting in Las Vegas. How much did that kind of help motivate you? Just kind of saying, you know what? I came from this place. I wasn't obviously fighting these big stages, and now look at where I made it to, where I'm fighting in some of the greatest, most well known stadiums and rings in the entire world.
Yeah, that's it's huge. And it makes me kind of be a little more grateful and value those things a lot more. Those moments
Yeah.
because yeah, like I told you, man. I mean, now that I'm a little more experienced and I look back and see that there was nothing guaranteed, I thank myself for for just pushing myself that much more.
Mm.
Because maybe if I would have sat down and thought, there's nobody here from PBC watching, there's nobody here from this big companies watching me. Why am I gonna go all out? Or why am I gonna give it my all? Maybe I wouldn't be here where I'm at right now. So I just thank myself for just always being dedicated and working hard and just always giving my all. Like I said, it never mattered where I was. I could have been down in Mexico, and I could have been at the T-Mobile Arena. I always give it my all
Mm.
because the type of person I am, the type of athlete I am, and the respect that I have for boxing itself.
So when would you say it did start to kind of change for yourself? Because you were saying that you didn't really have a plan or just go out there, fight, give it your all. When did things kind of start changing for yourself and it became more of the business aspect that it is today for yourself now?
I feel like, I mean, essentially, it was when I turned 18, and it was okay. Like now, I can fight in the United States. Like,
Hmm.
who am I gonna fight under? But I was lucky, man, because as soon as I turned 18, we started talking to Louis de Cuba Jr. and he was excited to work with us. He said we're gonna give you an opportunity to showcase your skills, and even then, I feel like it was just about just showcasing my talent. I would honestly say up until recently, you really start paying attention to like kind of like the business aspect, and
Sure.
kind of like now that you're in this big event, and especially like being under the Canelo undercard, you start learning how he kind of carries himself. He runs the show, man. You know, whatever he says goes, and that's the type that's the type of power as a boxer that you kind of want. You know,
Sure.
that's the goal. You know, could be like Canelo Mayweather used to do the same thing, and that's what essentially you want to be there. You know, because I mean, I feel like nobody's in this sport just to be an average fighter, just to be average, and we're all trying to be great. So just being around all of that, man, it makes you think, and it makes you like want to be where Canelo's at, and want to work as hard, and you know, get there. That's the goal, just to get there.
So you mentioned that you always want to put your best foot forward. You always want to fight no matter where it was, what it was. And there's another quote I actually found in another interview you talked about that I thought was really interesting because it's polar opposite of what the mindset is of a lot of guys in any sport today, or even people not in sports. And he said this: "I want to earn my reputation. I'm not here to have Instagram followers. I'm here to make a statement in boxing." You know, like I said, that's not something that a lot of people. I mean, you could say athletes, you could say just people in general. Now, it's about Instagram followers. It's about how famous can I be. You obviously completely went the opposite side of that. You said, I'm just here to do me, work my reputation, make a statement in boxing. Why is that the mindset you have in this world, especially in the sports of self promotion, essentially, for yourself that you're in today?
I mean, I just like I told you, I the kind of the way I was brought up, you know, just um always doing other activities, and even now, man, it's kind of hard to keep up with my social media. I try my best, but it's just hard, and yeah, I know it's a responsibility. It's something that I have to do. It's kind of like what's trending now and what as an athlete you should do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard, man. Like I said, for me, especially in training camp, it's just like I mean, the perfect day for me would be wake up, eat, go do what I have to do, either train, run, come back, rest, go back, work out for boxing, come back, and recover, man. Just rest and do the process all over again.
Yep.
But then you add like I have to do, you know, I gotta get an Instagram post. I gotta have my photographer out here, uh, get a video in, little things, you know, to keep my fans kind of engaged. All that is, I think that's hard, you know, that's
Yep.
tough because as an athlete, you kind of just want to focus. You got so much pressure on doing this and doing that, and it's just a lot of things you got to juggle, man. But that's the new that's the new world we live in, and I gotta kind of adapt to that. And at at the end of the day, yeah, you juggle a lot of things, but that's kind of like the vision, you know, greatness. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to be great, you got to juggle whatever comes your way.
So I know that that's obviously something that's like completely different mindset to begin with too, because I said a lot of people that's just who they are. They just love social media and all those aspects. And I think especially in America, you know, there's a lot of boxes we could list. I won't list too many names that obviously are on Twitter and stuff a lot, and they make a lot of statements consistently. To have that mindset where you know that even though you have to go do it, you're not going to let it kind of take over your life. Where it's going to be something that you know you're on Twitter 24/7. I mean, I think you haven't even tweeted something in a few months and all that. So I mean, it's something where you kind of just look at and say, you know, I'm going to make sure that my priorities are set where I'm the best boxer I can possibly be. And I'm going to make sure just other things, but I'm going to prioritize my skill, my game, you know, who I am. How have you made sure to have the priorities right in your life?
Honestly, I think it's more of just because I love the sport, how much I love for the sport I have, and I always stay dedicated, and you know, continue to learn. I mean, it just if you're a full time athlete, you understand how it just consumes your whole day, man. There is no like sitting down and tweeting and doing all of this and going back and forth. It's hard to do that, at least
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Sure.
And another thing, another point that why I don't like doing it, man, it just adds so much pressure, and we've seen it,
Mm.
you know, with fighters, and I won't say names either, but we see it where they go back and forth with other people saying, "I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that on Twitter and I'm gonna show you guys this," and then they go and fight and they don't show it, and you know they got screenshots of you saying, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So you're adding all this pressure to yourself that's unnecessary when your only job, man, is to train, prepare yourself, and go perform. That's the
Yep.
only job you have, and you don't have to sit there and argue with every fan, every critic. You know they're on Twitter for a reason, and you're at the gym for a reason, and you're gonna be in the T-Mobile Arena for a reason in a couple of weeks, you know, and that's
Mhm.
where you kind of just it's you know, but you gotta balance stuff out, man.
So I want to also go into your boxing game a little bit because there was a point where in 2020 you talked about, you had this great KO power. That's something that you kind of based your fight around, and then you wanted to work on your defense as more so your goal. And I think we've seen that a lot more. You've overall become a much all complete, all around fighter. What's next for yourself? Is there? I know obviously you always want to improve. Nobody's ever perfect. So what do you say now at this point in time in 2024, where you're at in your career? What are the things that you really are looking to emphasize and improve on as you continue to move forward in your career?
I wanna I want to take all that and put it together, man. I want it to come together. I want to have that same power that I had back then, knocking people out. That same aggression. I want to say power. I think the power's still there. It's just more being that aggressive while having my defense skills, while being defensively sound, and being able to just implement all that together, man. And there's obviously different things I want to work on, um, and lately, I've been working a lot on my jab, getting my speed up, and all of these things, man. I keep watching my last fight, see how I can grow from that,
Hmm.
and just I just want to be better fight by fight, and like we talked about earlier, in today's era, you're only as good as your last performance. So I want to keep getting better, keep growing, keep maturing. I'm only 23, and I'm only gonna get better from here. I'm only gonna get more experience. I'm only gonna get more man strength, and I'm just gonna develop into a better boxer. I believe.
So that is one of the final things I do want to touch up on you because I alluded to it a little bit ago when I talked about your age, and that's crazy because we looked at that whole 154 group. We got a lot of guys post 30 years old in that group. We got a lot of guys, and that's typically for a large portion of weight classes. It's a grown man sport. You're going to see a lot of guys older is when you're kind of in your prime or whatnot. But you're right here in the mix of it. We're talking about yourself as you're ranked number 3 in the WBC, number 8 WBA, number 6 IBF, number 12 WBO. You're right here heavily in the mix, and you're only 23 years old. Like, there is a long time for you to go in terms of being able to win world championships at this weight class, maybe even another weight class, whatever it might look like. So what do you have in store for your future then? Like, how are you kind of balancing this? You just want to kind of stay at 154 for the foreseeable future? Is this something possibly moving up as you get older and potentially gain weight the right way? Like, what do we have in store for you while you're still such a young age?
I do have a lot of goals, man, and I want to become a world champion here at 154. I do believe I can grow into the 160 and 168 pound
Okay.
division, and I want to get titles there as well. I feel like those three weight classes are the ones that are in my plans right now that I believe I can conquer and I want to conquer, and that's kind of my goal. And I want to do all of this before I retire, and I don't want to retire. I don't want to retire, too late. I want to kind of get all of this done now because I'm young. I feel like I can get it all right now. I mean, I'm young, I'm growing, I'm dedicated, and I think I got the right people around me. I got
Mm.
family. Um, I don't think I'm making too much mistakes. I'm not hanging around the bad crowd, and so I'm staying dedicated. I'm staying in the gym and learning, improving, so that I can compete with all these guys who possibly have more experience. I mean,
Sure.
they've even lived longer than me. Even just that. You gain more experience with the years, man.
Hmm.
So I just feel like as long as I stay dedicated and continue to work hard, man, I can continue to compete with these top guys at 154 and can continue my journey here until I become a world champion. And I'm ready to move up, like you said, in a healthy way and up to 160 and 168 possibly as well. And
So
I mean, that's the goal.
So you're obviously at 154 right now. Would you say this is the comfortable weight, like for where you're at right now in terms of age or body? Like, is 154 kind of exactly perfect for yourself right now, or do you think you could even potentially go fight at 160? Like, if that was had to be the case for yourself, do you think 160 would be an okay weight class for you at this point in time?
No, I'm still good at 154. I'm still
Hmm.
making it comfortably, and I feel like I can continue to do that for a couple more years, I believe, maybe a year, 2 years.
Okay.
Uh, and I mean, but who knows? That's what I felt at 147, man. But yeah, well, I outgrew 147 pretty fast. I was 19. I was growing, and
Yeah.
each training camp, I was just growing more and more. So it was kind of hard to keep it down at 150, at 147. So right now, I mean, I feel good at 154, and I'm gonna continue to fight at 154 until my body allows it.
All right, so I do want to ask you this question because you've had a lot of big fights throughout your career so far. A lot of people could say this might be your favorite, this might be your favorite, but I just want to ask you from the person's experience all these fights firsthand, what would you say was your favorite career win, and what would you say also was your best, most notable performance so far in your career?
Oh man, that's a tough question, man. I think I, I think the fight that I've enjoyed the most, that's one of my favorites. I think it's the one with Vladimir Hernandez, and I think it
Hmm.
was just because he kept coming, man. He would not stop. He kept coming. He kept pushing, and I think it was just an exciting fight for the fans and for myself. It was a great challenge. He was coming off a win over J Rock, and it was kind of a big stepping stone for me, and I was just very excited for that fight. I remember I kept visualizing how I was gonna fight him and how what I was gonna do to kind of throw him off, and everything would just work that night. So that was one of my favorite fights,
Hmm.
as well as the Joey Spencer fight. Man, those two are kind of hard to those two are my favorite because in the Joey Spencer fight. I felt like I was kind of on a different level. And when
Hmm.
that fight got made, people had it 50-50. A lot of people thought it was going to be a great fight. And me personally, I just felt like it wasn't, it wasn't a 50-50 fight. I felt like I had beat more notable opponents than him, and I was at a different stage of my career. But I was excited to be able to prove that on a good card. So like that was another night where everything just kind of came together and everything. It was just a perfect night. It was a perfect training camp. It was a perfect night, and those are hard to get, man. As I continue to grow and I continue to get further in my career, you start to see how those performances and those nights are hard to get, man. Where you're just everything's working and everything's 100%.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that go into being ready for that one moment.
Yep.
And in terms of the biggest, I feel like Brian Mendoza was one of the bigger names that I beat because of what he came back to do. He came back and
Hmm.
beat Fundora and Rosario, so those are big wins, and he gave Tim Tszyu a great fight as well.
Yep.
So I feel like that's one of the biggest names that I've beat because, like I said, of what he came back and did. But I mean, but Vladimir, he's on a good winning streak too, man.
Yep.
He's doing real good. So I mean, I fought some good guys, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got two more questions for you then. I know we kind of, in a sense, addressed some of this in the beginning portions of this interview, but I do want to look at the timeline a little bit more for yourself because you said obviously you want to fight before the end of the year. And like I said, obviously WBC, you're number 3 at currently. So, I mean, you're pretty high up there in terms of the contender for that. Is fighting for a belt, is that something you see in the future? Like, is that something you've had a discussion about potentially getting a potential title fight, either this year or next year? Or when can we possibly see you fight for a chance to go get a belt?
Hopefully next year, man. That's
Hmm.
I was hoping this year. I wanted it this year. Going into this year, that's all I had in my mind. I need to become a world champion this year. But things have been kind of stagnant, in terms of fighting and all of that. It's been kind of hard to get in the card, but like I said, I'm gonna continue to do my part so that I'm ready, and I feel like I'm just one fight away from that breakthrough moment where
Hmm.
people are gonna realize that I am a big player in the 154 division, and it's just like I said, I just need one fight, and I'm gonna prove it, and that's why I'm staying ready, and that's why I'm perfecting my craft. You know, each day I'm just 1% better. That's all I'm focusing on, just being 1% better.
Absolutely, man. Well, I actually want to start off the interview with this portion. I actually got into another thing, and that's obviously your nickname. It's El Mono, which in English that would be the monkey. I want to ask you a little bit about that. Then, how did that nickname come to be? Why is that what you go by?
El mono, it does mean monkey, but it's also like referred to as like cute, you know,
Mhm.
like yeah, like kind of like cute. And it was my dad gave it to me because I was a baby and he was always like dressing me up as a grown man. You know, he'd put the glasses on me, sunglasses, the hat, and I would always leave him. You know, and he was like, mono, el mono, because it was always just I was just grown. You know, just leaving my sunglasses, not messing with it, my hat, and it was just for cute. So it was a family nickname, man, and it was something that just they stuck with me. You know, as here in town, as we opened up boxing gyms, and my classmates were coming into the gym, hearing the nickname. It was then brought from the gym to school, and then
Mhm.
the school now. I mean, there's people that don't even know my name, and they just call me Mono. You know, so it's crazy.
Absolutely, man. Well, my final question, I like asking everybody to wrap up each interview with, is when you do decide to put away the gloves and you decide to step away from the ring, as you said, that's something that you want to get done somewhat quickly overall. But when that day does come, what is it that you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for what you accomplished inside and outside of the ring?
I want to be remembered for being one of the greatest of all time, man. I kind of
Mm,
want my name when you speak about boxing, my name comes up, kind of like the Manny Pacquiao, the Julio Cesar Chavez, Floyd Mayweather,
mm.
Mike Tyson, even, and Canelo. Now, that's the legacy that I want to leave. You know, I want to. You know, it's been years of dedication, of hard work and discipline to to not get there. You know, so I want to make it worth my while, and I want to make sure that I get to that stage where, like I said, being one of the greatest of all times, and just being remembered for putting forth some of the great fights. You know, I want to be involved in some of the great fights in boxing. I want to go down in history for fights like Morales versus Barrera fight, Pacquiao Marquez, those type of fights that us as boxing fans remember through the years. I want to be part of those fights. You know, those memorable fights, and like I said, leave a legacy that will live on.
Absolutely, man. Well, Jesus, I appreciate taking time to come on today, and I'm excited to see what God's got next for you and whatever that's
Thank
going to
you.
look like, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time as well, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. You're always welcome on you. Anytime you want to come on, just let me know, and you're always welcome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
All right, so talk to you later, man. God bless.
All right. All right, man. Thank you. Likewise.